people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The next chapter in the annual Ring IQ Talent Search. In the year of 2023, our next contestant takes us to the Caribbean.
It's the Caribbean.
Bayamón, Puerto Rico.
Where an unbeaten up-and-comer nicknamed La Medicina, translated to English meaning the medicine or the cure,
It's one way to interpret it.
is making big waves in the women's welterweight division. I'm talking about Stephanie Piñeiro, a fighter who I was thoroughly impressed with upon viewing the footage. Stephanie Piñeiro sports a professional record of 3 wins, no losses, and no draws with 2 knockouts. She has the look of a more seasoned, experienced fighter than she actually is. Great physical dimensions for the women's welterweight division. She has the kind of physical dimensions that could see her one day campaigning as a junior middleweight or even a middleweight. 32 years old.
Not the youngest unbeaten up-and-comer, but certainly not the oldest. Even at 32 years old, there's plenty of time for Stephanie to make a splash.
From out of Bayamón, Puerto Rico, fighting out of the southpaw stance.
Bayamón, Puerto Rico. I believe that's where Amanda Serrano also hails from.
I believe it is, unless I'm mistaken. Puerto Rico's latest up-and-coming pugilist, Stephanie Piñeiro, debuted as a professional way back when, in 2019, in September, and it seems that there was a stint of inactivity, at least 2 in there. You know, she debuted in September of 2019. She didn't have another fight until January of 2020, just before the pandemic shut everything down. And she didn't return to action until well over a year later, close to 2 in December of last year. But she did it in style. She made a splash.
Great reaction from the crowd opposite the ring. Then unbeaten Desiree Jameson from right here in the US of A.
Stephanie racked up a first-round knockout of then unbeaten Desiree Jameson, and you could see that Stephanie, she knows what she's doing.
Some amateur experience. Stephanie is coordinated, a fighter that can fight on the fly.
And play the aggressor and the defender equally well, moving forwards or moving backwards, whilst being accurate.
Letting punches go. She's not flustered by pressure.
A natural athlete who is both a boxer and a basketball player. That's right, she's got some experience.
She's a natural athlete, which explains that level of coordination.
Set to return to action later on this year, next month, opposite the ring, seasoned journeywoman Yamila Reynoso. Yamila, who's shared the ring with a lot of fighters, and I mean a lot of fighters, good ones.
Yamila Reynoso, who sports a professional record of 12 wins, 12 losses with 3 draws, 8 knockouts, having never been knocked out.
The Argentinian slugger who's shared the ring with anyone from the very statuesque Mary Spencer to the seasoned and experienced, the decorated Amanda Serrano, Erica Farias, Chris Namas, Victoria Bustos, Marie-Pierre Huel, many of the good fighters that have come through these weights. I mean, you name them, there's a good chance that Yamila has shared the ring with them before.
She'll be sharing the ring with Stephanie next month. Ambitious matchmaking for a fighter that only has 3 professional fights.
3-0 fighter like Stephanie Piñeiro, and it seems that they're getting Stephanie's career on track, given those previous stints of inactivity and the fact that her last fight was in December of last year, her next fight being in February.
Looks like they've got Stephanie on a regular schedule of activity, which is what she needs because she's got the talent.
She blew me away when I first saw her. She really blew me away with how coordinated she is and how strong,
how accurate she is,
how spiteful, and she's got personality.
That helps. That goes a long way towards a fighter's marketability. Being fan-friendly in the ring and exhibiting charisma outside of it.
She'll be opposite the ring, Yamila Reynoso, next month. Yamila Reynoso, who's never been stopped, needless to say. If Stephanie Piñeiro can rack up another highlight reel knockout.
Yamila's as tough as they come.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if this fight ends up going the distance because I reiterate, Yamila Reynoso, she is as tough as they come. She's no stranger to sharing the ring with big punchers, and I mean big, big punchers.
But at the same time, the fight going the distance is exactly what Stephanie needs. She needs to get more rounds in the bank. She only has 3 professional contests.
It's hard to develop a fighter, fight by fight, when they're knocking out their opponents early. They don't get to bank very many rounds. They don't really get to work on things under the hot lights. So this is just what the doctor ordered for Stephanie Piñeiro.
Stephanie, whose last 2 fights didn't go the distance. As a professional, Stephanie's only boxed for a grand total of 9 rounds. Just 9 rounds.
Stephanie hasn't actually gone the distance with a fighter since her professional debut, which was billed as a 6-rounder. So believe you me, being opposite the ring, a tough, durable fighter that can push back a bit, that's exactly what Stephanie needs at this stage in her career. And I'm very much excited about this fighter.
Definitely one of Ring IQ's top prospects to watch this year.
Because they're getting her out there early in the year. That leaves plenty of time to schedule more fights for Stephanie later on in the year. Perhaps one in the spring, one in the summer, one in the fall.
That's what you want for a fighter this early in their career. You want to keep them active. You want to keep them garnering professional experience and banking rounds.
Stephanie Piñeiro is a very exciting young fighter, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she does in the year of 2023. For now, keep your eyes peeled for Piñeiro versus Reynoso next month. In men's light heavyweight news, former WBA and Ring Magazine super middleweight champion turned light heavyweight contender Callum Smith is to push for the Beterbiev mandatory position. He's confident he can upset the unified champion.
I've already given my preliminary thoughts about what I think that fight would look like and how I think it would end.
I'll leave the link to that video in the description box. Former world super middleweight champion Liverpool's Callum Smith, 29 wins with 1 loss, 21 knockouts, who is the WBC's mandatory challenger, told Sky Sports that he intends to push for his shot at unified light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev for Beterbiev's next fight. Although most fans would prefer an undisputed matchup between Beterbiev and WBA champion Dmitry Bivol, Smith is determined to uphold his mandatory shot against Beterbiev. I've done my part. I've become mandatory, so I can sit and wait and fight for 3 of the belts.
This is going to be a problem.
Callum is with Matchroom. Artur is with Top Rank. Neither promotional outfit just wants to send their fighter over.
I don't think.
The Liverpudlian stopped France's WBC number 2 ranked Mathieu Bauderlique in a final eliminator on the Usyk versus Joshua 2 undercard to earn his shot. Smith is confident that he can pull off the upset. I've seen other fighters hurt him and put him over. I fully believe I can. I'm in my peak.
Talking about the Jeff Page knockdown, the Callum Johnson knockdown.
I'm in my peak years now, and the time to beat him is now. Callum Smith's promoter, Eddie Hearn, has previously told Boxing Social that he wants to stage a fight between Mundo and Beterbiev at the 53,000 capacity Enfield Stadium in Liverpool.
Do you see what I mean? He wants the fight.
However, Hearn may have to win a purse bid to take the fight to Enfield or to stage it on DAZN at all. Beterbiev's promoter, Bob Arum, may want to place that fight in Canada or the United States with a 70-30 split in favor of the Canadian-Russian at the purse bid. It will be easier for them to do so. Before that, Smith will have a fight on March 11th at the M&S Bank Arena in Liverpool, live on DAZN. To stay active, the opponent is yet to be confirmed, but is expected to be a world-ranked contender.
Sorry, but if you're going to go into negotiations to do a fight involving a Matchroom fighter, it shouldn't be Callum Smith. It should be Dmitry Bivol.
After the Yard fight this past weekend, we heard by way of Top Rank that they're going to explore doing the Bivol fight next.
But if for some reason that doesn't work out, Beterbiev versus Smith may end up happening at the end of the summer in Montreal.
How many times do I gotta say this? Artur don't have the luxury of time, and Top Rank can't give him the luxury of choice. The biggest fight for him is the Bivol fight.
That takes precedence.
Artur Beterbiev's next fight is already taking preliminary shape. The WBC, WBO, and IBF Russian light heavyweight bruiser is coming off a thrilling 8th-round stoppage over Game Anthony Yard, the WBO's mandatory challenger, last Saturday night at the OVO Arena in Wembley, London. According to Carl Moretti, the vice president of Top Rank, who promotes Beterbiev, the next fight for the Russian knockout artist may come against yet another mandatory. The WBC's top contender and England's Callum Smith.
You know, there are a lot of people running with this narrative that it's Dmitry Bivol aging out Artur Beterbiev. But you know what?
What?
If you want to circumvent your mandatory challenger,
It's your own team that has to file that paperwork. You're the ones that have to petition the WBC. Eddie Hearn and Dmitry Bivol are powerless in that situation.
there's nothing they can do.
Moretti said they would look to stage this fight in Beterbiev's adopted hometown of Montreal, Canada, sometime in the late summer. The 38-year-old Beterbiev, a devout Muslim, observes the Ramadan holiday, and that will last a month starting from late March. So he would not be available to fight in the spring. With Artur Beterbiev's win over Anthony Yard, we now have a number of possibilities for his next fight. Moretti told Le Journal de Montreal, "We would probably be obliged to offer a fight to Callum Smith, the mandatory for the WBC. We would like to stage this fight in Montreal at the end of the summer."
My honest opinion, that fight does bigger and better numbers in Anfield and Liverpool than it would in Montreal.
My honest opinion is it's a much bigger fight in the United Kingdom if Eddie does it than if it's in Canada and Top Rank does it.
So what the article said, 53,000 capacity stadium in Anfield.
Eddie Hearn can get the both of these fighters, the champion and the challenger, more money than Bob can.
Remember, if you're not going to petition the WBC to allow you to fight Bivol next,
If you're not going to do that, and what you want to do is have Artur fight Callum, you've got to make Callum an offer he's willing to accept. Because if a deal can't be consummated between the two parties, the fight ends up going to a purse bid.
meaning the company that turns in the higher dollar amount will retain the rights to stage the fight on their preferred network. Top Rank deals with ESPN and Matchroom deals with DAZN.
But any way you slice it, to get around Callum Smith, you need the WBC's blessing, and in order to get it, you have to petition for an exemption.
people at Top Rank have got to do that. Artur Beterbiev's handlers, his manager, his promoter, they're the ones that have to ask for that exemption.
If they don't, and Artur ends up fighting Callum next instead of Dmitry, don't blame Eddie Hearn for that. Eddie Hearn and Dmitry Bivol are powerless in that situation. There's nothing they can do.
You know how I feel about it. The fight I want to see next more than any other fight is Dmitry Bivol versus Artur Beterbiev. Mostly because Artur don't got the luxury of time.
He's 38 years old. Another couple of weeks in training camp, another fight, another potential injury.
You're going to go through a sordid set of negotiations to fight a Matchroom fighter, except the Matchroom fighter isn't Dmitry Bivol.
I don't know how much money you're going to have to offer Callum Smith in order to get him to agree to a deal, to agree to travel to Canada, when his promoter...
He wants to bring the fight to Anfield. He wants to stage it in front of 53,000 people, potentially in Anfield.
And I'm pretty sure that Callum Smith would like it to be in Anfield just as much as Eddie would. He's going to want home field advantage if he can get it. Moreover, he's going to want to make significant coin.
He's not going to fight Artur Beterbiev on the cheap. Doing a fight between Artur and Callum for Bob may be more trouble than it's worth.
Gotta offer this guy an interesting enough amount of money that he takes the deal, because if he don't take the deal, things are gonna get that much more expensive at the purse bid.
And for what? For Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith in Montreal?
Are you kidding me? It's a solid fight. Don't misunderstand me. It's a solid fight, but in Montreal, that's not a big fight. It's actually bigger. It would be a bigger fight in Anfield.
Not that this fight takes precedence over a Bivol fight, because it doesn't.
Don't lose sight of the fact that if the top-ranked people are serious and they really want Dmitry Bivol to be Artur's next fight, they're the ones that have got to file the paperwork.
It's not on Eddie. It's not on Dmitry.
They're the ones that have to convince Mauricio Suleiman and the World Boxing Council to let them fight for undisputed and call the mandatory off.
Let's not pretend that the WBC can't call this thing off, because they can.
The order has to come from them, and the order for Artur to face Callum, it hasn't even come down yet.
I don't give a fuck who you think wins Beterbiev versus Bivol. I can care less which one of those two guys you like more. What I know is that if Artur and Top Rank are serious about fighting Dmitry, it's on them.
They're the ones that have to petition the WBC. They're the ones that have to do the legwork. So if they don't,
Then we'll know they didn't really want to do that fight.
And finally, in men's welterweight news, on the heels of his decision loss to hard-punching Jaron Boots Ennis, Karen Chukhatsian says it would be a big pleasure to fight Virgil Ortiz.
Jaron Ennis couldn't put him in the hospital. He wants to see if Virgil can.
The thing is that Virgil is spoken for. He's supposed to be fighting a Montestanionis. We have a lot to do in the gym to correct our mistakes, said Chukhatsian to BoxingScene.com. I hope next fight that I cannot defend, but I want to show more attacks next fight. I want to prove to people that I can do more. As Chukhatsian scours the welterweight landscape, he becomes painfully aware of the long and arduous road that he must embark on, refusing to simply tuck his tail between his legs and fight lower-ranked contenders. Chukhatsian has brazenly set his sights on hard-hitting up-and-comer that has spent the last few years of his career terrorizing the welterweight division. It would be a big pleasure to fight Virgil Ortiz.
But as stated, Virgil's spoken for. He's supposed to be fighting a Montestanionis in April, I believe.
I'm not against this fight on the premise of a who did it better kind of situation, who did it better kind of deal. Virgil Ortiz as opposed to Jaron Boots Ennis, who up until that point, up until that Chukhatsian fight, he was stopping everyone they put in front of him.
But he couldn't stop a man named Karen.
By and large, the Dallas native has cataclysmically ended the night of all that have challenged him. And while Chukhatsian acknowledges that facing Ortiz comes with unfathomable dangers, he makes it clear that he would love nothing more than to step right into the line of fire. It interests me. He has a big punch. He knocks out everybody. So it would be interesting to try him.
Could Virgil Ortiz succeed where Jaron Boots Ennis failed? Could he knock this guy out?
Yeah, I actually think he can. I think he can because styles make fights, and Virgil Ortiz would not be in unfamiliar territory opposite the ring, a moving target in Karen Chukhatsian. In his last fight, he was opposite the ring, a moving target, a southpaw, a pure boxer in unbeaten Michael McKinson. And in spite of Michael's movement, buying him some time, Virgil was still able to get to him. He was still able to stop him. I think he'd stop Karen Chukhatsian.
But then why was Jaron Boots Ennis unable to stop Karen Chukhatsian, and why do you think Virgil would succeed where Jaron failed?
Karen Chukhatsian approached that Jaron Boots Ennis fight the way that he did, likely because he felt Jaron Ennis's punch and he knew he couldn't take any chances, so he fought to survive. He fought only half of a fight. I've no doubts he'd employ a similar strategy opposite the ring, Virgil Ortiz, with the difference being that Virgil's going to string more than 1 and 2 shots together. He's going to throw 3 and 4 shots, 5 shots. He's not going to stop throwing.
He's not going to stop throwing. He's going to keep going until he gets the guy out of there, whereas Jaron was trying to set up the knockout off the jab.
In order to bring over the straight, it was really just 1 and 2 shots at a time.
And if the first shot don't land or the second shot don't land, while Karen Chukhatsian is still pivoting,
fighting on the balls of his feet and staying out of harm's way, Jaron Boots Ennis has no choice but to give chase. And
Virgil Ortiz is a more prolific puncher than Jaron Boots Ennis. Not saying that Jaron doesn't let his hands go. He does, but he's a little bit more methodical, and that makes him predictable.
Whereas Virgil is more of a Gatling gun.
More of a volume puncher than Jaron Boots Ennis is.
Yeah, the old saying goes, styles make fights.
Whether or not Virgil Ortiz would or wouldn't knock out Karen Chukhatsian has no bearing over what a fight between him and Jaron Boots Ennis would look like. Triangle theories, they don't work.
Boxing math doesn't work like that, though. Based on the respective styles of Virgil Ortiz and Karen Chukhatsian, I would go with Virgil to stop him. I would go with Virgil to knock him out.
I think Karen's got a death wish.
Maybe. All I know is opposite the ring Virgil Ortiz, I think he'd find what he's looking for.